Let's talk about ghost guns, which is, it's crazy when you look at the crime statistics and how bad they are. And yet ghost guns, I guess, are the problem. Could you just, in your Dana way, explain what a ghost gun is and then explain what Joe Biden is trying to do to them and with them?
Yeah, so a ghost gun is a made-up term. Just like the phrase assault weapon is made up, ghost weapon is made up. Ultimately, this is what it is. People since the beginning of time, there's two truths about the founding of the country. That we were founded because colonists had weapons of war, and also colonists made their own guns at home. Everybody made their own guns at home. I mean, this is how rifling came into effect. This is one of the things that gave us an advantage in terms of firepower over the British during the War of Independence. So we had the Pelton gun, the buckle gun. We had the Kentucky rifle, which was the rifle. All of these advancements because people like to create stuff at home. And also, to Biden's point, you could always purchase a cannon. I mean, I could go out and get a cannon right now if I wanted to. It'd look cool in my yard.
Sure.
But the ghost gun is a term for what hobbyists have been doing at home for ages. Now, it's already federal law. You can't sell a firearm that you make at home unless you serialize it. And so this targeting on what they call buy-build kits, basically you can get, it's like a Mr. Potato Head. This is honestly the best way that I can go. It's like Mr. Potato Head. You get it and then you kind of put it together. But you have to have a little bit of expertise, right? You got to know where the pieces go. And in the case of these firearms and these kits, you get a chunk of a kind of aluminum. Sometimes it's polymer. Usually it's unfinished aluminum so that people don't have the cut marks and they just paint it all out and finish it after. But you got to mill that out, right? You got to mill cavities for the other pieces to go in this chunk of aluminum. Basically, you're getting a paperweight and some nuts and bolts. And so what the ATF under Biden is doing now, they're trying to argue that they're saying this chunk of aluminum is the same thing as a firearm. They defined what a firearm was in the 1968 in one of the laws that they had passed, Gun Control Act, and they were defining what a firearm was. It's like a really long thing. The page that they came out with, the report that they came out with, the rule, I was trying to remember, I think it's 306 or 308 pages to how they were trying to argue their case that this chunk of aluminum is actually a firearm. It's a horrible argument that they're making, but ultimately that's what it is. And they're saying that because these hobbyists are making firearms at home and keeping them for their own personal use, and this is already federal law, they don't have to serialize that particular chunk of aluminum. But if I were to make a gun at home, Megyn, and if I were to sell it to you, I would have to serialize it. If I were to sell it to a family member in my own state of residence, I would still have to serialize it. I mean, this has all been established law for ages. And so Biden's saying now that, well, the increase in crime isn't due to us demanding to defund the police. It's not due to the restorative justice and all of these horrific Soros-backed DAs in places like California or St. Louis with Kim Gardner, or in D.C. or in New York where they had that bail reform that they had to walk back after all of these repeat offenders went out and committed over 400 brand new crimes after they got a wrist slap and barely had to serve any time for serious violent felonies. It's not due to anything like that. And it's not even due to the fact that we're increasing people's desperation by running the economy into a hole in the ground. It's because, Megyn, of hobbyists, people who are just in their spare time building their firearms at home. Because, Megyn, gangsters and drug dealers are going out and purchasing drilling presses and routers and all kinds of machinery, and they're spending that time milling this all out with the expertise that they have. One quick point on this, one last point. ATF said in March of this year, from 2016 to 2021, there were over 89,000 murders, firearms illegally used, illegally possessed, used in homicides. And they were saying that of that, 325 were attributable to ghost guns. Problem with that number is that sawed-off shotguns and firearms recovered at crime scenes with the serial number filed off, that all goes into that category too. So we actually don't even know. That's less than 1/3 of a percent. So the ATF can't even substantiate when they were asked by 2A groups about show their work. They refused to do it. So all of this is what they're using along with Joe Biden to further restrict firearm rights.
My gosh, you're 89,000 gun-related murders. Is that what you're saying between 2016 and 2021?
2021.
And the number committed by these so-called ghost guns, and they've defined it so widely it includes more than the actual thing, is 323?
Yeah, 325. And that's a combination of, most of the statistics come from FBI Uniform Crime Reports. Statistia has a good report state by state, too.
This is a joke. This is a joke. So, I mean, and he knows it's a joke. I mean, listen, I'm sure he'd love to ban, quote, assault rifles, which is a total impossibility. We've got like 400 million of them in the United States. You're not going to be banning them.
And on that, he never even banned the gun. On that, Megyn, they just banned 3 or more accessories that you could affix to the gun. Again, I go back to Mr. Potato Head. He didn't ban Mr. Potato Head. You can't put lips and ears and eyes on the Mr. Potato Head at the same time. You got to choose. Do you want eyes and lips? Do you want ears and eyes? What do you want? You can only pick a couple of them.
But you can't ban the potato. It's just not going to happen in modern day America. The people don't favor it. They don't want it. And he knows that. But the left wants him to, quote, do something. So this is him trying to look like he's doing something. You won't be surprised that the ladies of The View do not see it the same way you do, my pal. Here's constitutional scholar Joy Behar. Okay, there's a couple of view shots we're going to play. This is my favorite, though. This is Joy Behar trying to explain to us the way the Supreme Court works and how it's about to handle the issue of guns. Soundbite 3.
The Supreme Court is poised to pass a bill contradicting the New York City state laws. We have very strict gun laws here, and they would like it to be, apparently somebody has put this on their desk, that New York should be an open carry state and an open carry city. With all of the density in this city, they want people running around with guns. People, middle class people, will be leaving in droves if that happens.
Everything she just said was wrong. Literally everything.
That's not even what the case is about. And it wasn't.
Well, before we get to that, the Supreme Court doesn't pass bills. They don't pass bills. Yeah. That's what we call the legislature. That's the Congress, Joy. Try to pay attention. You just spelled right out there in the Constitution for you. Got the Article 1, Article 2, Article 3. So the Supreme Court just adjudicates the constitutionality of laws that have already been passed, and that's what it's doing with respect to not open carry, concealed carry in New York. You take it from there.
Yeah, it's New York Rifle and Pistol Association. They brought that case up to the court. And you're right, it's about concealed carry. It's not about open carry. I just think that if she's going to try to influence public opinion on these issues, she needs to know just like the very basics of the case that she's talking about. And maybe just, basic imagination of government, how government decides to pass a law. I mean, I watched Schoolhouse Rock when I was a kid. I'm sure you did too, Megyn.
Yes.
We all know how bills were passed. I mean, I watched.
They didn't mention the Supreme Court.
Walk me through the process. There was no Supreme Court in there. I didn't see a bunch of rogue people in there walking that bill up. So this is like government 101. These people are bad citizens. She's a bad citizen. You have a responsibility as a free person to understand how your government works. And if you don't, you are falling short of the ideal that our founders envisioned for our citizenry.
Here's a question for you. What about her assertion that the middle class New Yorkers are going to leave the city in droves if concealed carry, because right now it's very hard to get concealed carry permit in Manhattan. Yeah. You have to get trained. You have to prove that there's a threat. You basically have to be a famous person. I mean, that's kind of it. Or you have to have an active restraining order against somebody. But you can't just get one if you're just anybody. And if you can't get concealed carry, what that means is you can't get a gun in New York City. So she's saying if they allow concealed carry on a more widespread basis without making everybody jump through all these hoops, all the middle class are going to flee. But you tell me, I mean, how many states in the union have concealed carry laws already?
A ton of them. In fact, and in terms of permitless carry, Georgia just became the 25th state just this past week. Brian Kemp just signed that into law. Everyone always says it's going to be like the Wild West and there's going to be violence in the streets. There's nothing that ever supports that. In fact, actually, you could argue that you could beg the question, actually, that crime does, in fact, go down when these laws pass. The thing that surprises me, I didn't realize there was a middle class left in New York anymore. I thought that the high crime and the feces and needles and people getting shoved into subway tracks and everything else kind of drove everybody out of New York. I think maybe more people would stay in if they had the ability to protect themselves. I mean, you have the New York Safe Act. What is it? You can't have a magazine that holds more than 10 rounds, and you can't have more than 7 rounds. It's weird. The laws that they have, particularly New York Safe Act, is absolutely bizarre, and it does nothing to contribute towards any kind of decrease in crime. In fact, the restorative justice that's running rampant through that system up there, that makes sure of that.
Hey, thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.